Hey, it's Carrie Joe.
Hey, it's Anna. Join us as we learn new things, challenge our assumptions, and grow as people. Welcome to the Heretical Hippies podcast.
In this season, we are going to explore the intersection of curiosity and wonder, and hopefully develop some fresh ways to see the world and ourselves. So come along for the ride, or don't. Either way, we're going to hit record. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Heretical Hippies. Anna and I are here today with one of my online friends, I guess you could say. Anna, hey, how are you?
Hey, gang. Good to be here.
And we are with Jamie, and she's going to share her story with us today. So just a little background, I'm connected with her because two of my friends went to the Revelation Wellness training and retreat, and I was like stalking them like mad on Facebook. This is while I was in Nigeria. So I was like totally involved in like seeing what they were going through, seeing what kind of videos I could spot them in. And she was in that same retreat. So I don't know. I don't even know how it got connected from there, to be honest. But here we are. We're all sharing in our deconstruction journey. So, Jamie, we welcome you.
Thank you, guys. I'm honored to be here this morning.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're happy that you were able to make the time after getting up at the butt crack of dawn to join us. So, yeah, thanks for making the sacrifice. It means a lot. So we're just gonna jump right in. We kind of like are a no bullshit podcast. We don't do a lot of back and forth. We would love to hear, who is Jamie? Give us a little 5-cent tour of who you are.
I think that's going to be the hardest question you ask anybody on this podcast is, who are we right now? And that is the question. Currently, I am a 40-year-old wife of 19 years to my husband, TJ. I have 3 biological children. I have 4 children that we did adopt. I have one that has a child, so I'm a grandma. I am currently a dialysis social worker. I didn't even know what dialysis was 3 years ago, but now I'm their social worker. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I actually live on Whidbey Island. I moved to an island, and that's part of my deconstruction journey, actually, was moving to an island. And I am not sure about my faith right now. I don't know if I identify as a Christian or not. We'll get there.
Well, you're in great company.
I know I am. I know I said, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about like why the island is significant?
I am born and raised in Washington. I moved to Eastern Washington, specifically Spokane, Cheney, Washington area for college. That is where I met my husband. We ended up getting married. We tried to move away once, we moved back, but that's where we raised our family originally, was over there. Part of our deconstruction journey was a lot of trauma and a lot of pain with losing our community. And as I was going through therapy, working through that, part of the journey of healing was, did I actually have permission to move? We've tried to move in the past. That's actually part of our story of unhealthy enmeshment within our church culture. Is several times we tried to move away for better work options for us. And we had at least 2 to maybe 3 times people came to our home from our church telling us that we were following the enemy, that it was not what we could do, that very much guilted into different ideas of not leaving.
Yeah.
And
hello, high control religion. Nice to meet you.
I know. And it's not like everybody in the church agreed with that, but the people who mattered did. And then sometimes those would actually fall apart, like the opportunities to leave. And so they felt justified in their response, like, see, we told you. And it got very confusing internally. Anyways, so we got an opportunity to leave. And I said, can I go over here? And we also, it's, again, complicated. COVID had a lot to do with it as well. Housing markets had a lot to do with it. We were trying to build a home. Things got crazy. So we were looking for places with more diversity, because I am very white and I had children that were very much not white. We were struggling where we were living. And this had a 65% diversity rate over here. And It's a very interesting story too, but we ended up moving. Like, we had the idea, and within 4 months we moved
Wow.
on an island. I remember looking at my therapist. I'm like, "Can I move?" And she's like, "Yeah." And it's almost like it was a journey of a true boundary. Like, I have this island where I could start healing. It was a healing move for my entire family, because my entire family had healing to do.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, we love it here. I have not regretted it for a single day.
That's amazing. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit more about, so you said that was a major part of your deconstruction, obviously getting out of the toxic community and those relationships that we're trying to control. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of those other key moments or key experiences in your life that led you to this space of questioning what you're being taught, questioning what you've believed all these years? Like the cognitive dissonance. We use that phrase a lot.
There was
So
a lot of that.
tell us about those moments and how they
There was
got
a
you
lot
to
of
where you are.
gaslighting in there
Yeah.
to tell me that I wasn't, don't ask. So I've been questioning it from day one. I was not raised in church. My parents are non-religious, non-church going. I had a friend from very early on, starting like at age 5, that her mom would take me to church. And I didn't know it at the time what it was, but it was the only positivity I had in my life. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional home. It was Church of Christ, so very conservative on one end, no musical instruments, salvation by baptism, all types of things. I just remember going to youth camp during the summers there and just being very confused why the same people were being baptized every summer over and over again. That was the church high, they called it, right? And moving forward, had quite robust experience in high school and early college. And that same friend ended up being at the college I was going to. We had not chatted for years. And then she ended up being back at the college when I was in a position of being on academic probation for drinking and getting in trouble with my sorority. And so I was looking for a change. And I find a lot of people who are looking for healing from early childhood trauma and whatnot go to a high control group, because it's kind of a familiar feeling.
Sure.
But in a healthier
guardrails.
way. Yeah.
Yep.
And community. I needed
Yes.
people to walk alongside me. I have attachment issues. Like, people wanted to love me. I was all in. But I remember that very first year. So I was in college, and it was called Campus Crusade. They only call it Cru now. Campus Crusade for Christ, and that was the online ministry that I joined. I remember it was around Easter time, and there's some stories within that too. And I remember the first question, why do we call it Easter? And nobody could answer. And I just remember, like, what do you mean? You guys celebrate this and it's such a huge deal, and nobody could tell me why it's called Easter. Not a single freaking person. And they kind of just swiped it under the rug, like, why do you care so much about this? And I was like, because you're telling me to believe all this, and you can't even give me the answer for the first holiday I'm supposed to be celebrating with y'all. Like, why do we call it that? And that was my first time where I realized that my questions were not well received, and to just trust the process. So when I started asking those questions, I just kind of put those back and followed with what felt good in the moment, which was community. That was what I was missing, healthy community. It was definitely a transition. I met TJ during that time, and we kind of were in this exploring together thing. We had met previously in college when we were both kind of partying and doing our own thing. He was raised in the church, so he kind of was coming back to his faith when we met back up, and I was just starting to really explore it at that time. And we were married very quickly. We actually got a lot of pushback even then. People didn't like that the new chick that had just started the church ministry with them was finding a boy right away and getting married. That was complicated. They said that we had several people telling us we were too young to be married, but yet don't have sex. So you better hurry either way. And so we did that. We were dating on January 1st, so New Year's. We were engaged by April, married by August. The
I've
odds were not
heard
in
of
our
faster. I've heard faster.
pretty big. Was it to have sex? Yeah, probably. I don't know. Like, that was a huge part of it. We were trying to do it right. And then the churches that we were in, I remember my first questions were, tell me more about the Bible. How do you know that this is true? And I just wanted to do it right. And I was very important to me authenticity is huge. And so I wanted to believe in what I was doing. And so actually the pastor at the time created an entire course on biblical inherency. What is the word that we call it? It's truth, and how we can tell that it is God breathed and why we believe it to be believed. And I had so many questions even in there, but I loved my pastor and I believed in his belief. And I figured it would eventually come. Like, I don't quite get it yet, but I believe in him. And so it was always in the back of my mind, is there was a lot of questions that were never fully answered, and nobody could ever answer it for me. And I kind of put those behind me for several years while we started doing just ministry and missionary work, but those came back to the front once the church started kind of falling apart.
So was that the catalyst for this, really, the scales being tipped?
No, I think it was like, it was already always right there, ready for when I was ready to admit. The catalyst was our church started showing signs of extreme unhealth. And I was on leadership, and I was starting to do my own therapy and my own personal work. And we had all these families who had adopted children. We were doing the things. We were very servant focused, and that felt really good. I remember I read the book Irresistible Revolution by Shane Claiborne. That changed my world. We were very heavily in the church by then. I had adopted 2 children, had birthed 2, and I remember saying, this means something to me, where we were putting aside denominations. Denominations always weirded me out and always made me ask more questions. If it's so clear, how can we have so many denominations? Like, nobody could answer that for me.
Make it make sense.
Make it make sense. Like, if it's so clear, then why do we have so many denominations? Moving forward, I found Revelation Wellness. And I think what I really appreciated about them is they were non-denominational, and people from all churches were welcome. And that was very welcoming to me. But my church didn't like it in the end. They were worried.
What does that have to do with the yoga?
No,
just didn't like physical fitness. Like, I'm trying to find the
I mean,
reason
I
here.
also hate burpees, but I'm not going to take a religious stance on it.
we were very supportive of me. I think that it was my alliance was going somewhere else in my time.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And it wasn't everybody. It was certain people. I started noticing families that spent too much time doing sports with their children were not devoted enough to the church. Like, they should be volunteering. I was so burnt out with serving the church for free, and it was expected of me. And, I had 4 adopted children and 3 biological children. I was raising 7 children at this time, making no money, staying at home. My husband was working night shift as a police officer, 12-hour shifts. I was essentially a single parent, and the church just kept asking more of me. But I wasn't allowed to ask any questions. And then when my kids my adopted children started rupturing and running away, and the church started chasing them and abandoning us, all that came back to the surface again. And I can't name one specific thing. It just was like, this isn't aligning.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot, like you said, like, there's not one specific thing. There was a lot of things that came together that kind of like the perfect storm,
Yes.
Like, there's just too many things were stacking up, and you had to face the music.
Yeah. And I kind of recognize myself as a continual learner, right? I feel like that's where the faith for a lot of us, where it no longer works, when we are continuing to grow and heal.
Right.
And there's this level in typical evangelical Christianity where you just don't keep going. It kind of keeps you at this baseline junior level healing. And a lot of my stuff did not have a junior level response to healing. I wasn't healing my trauma. I was still very reactive. My nervous system was never calm. I was never sleeping well. I was at a point where what they were offering me to just pray about it, ask God for God's healing, keep moving, keep doing, wasn't healing. It was actually making things worse.
So
And
I'm
when I
asking for a friend, Jamie.
for a friend,
Wink, wink. Can you go into a little bit more of what that stunted emotional development? I mean, have you seen this? I guess let me back up. Have you seen this in your own clients? And do you deal with that regularly with them?
when I was practicing therapy, yeah.
Okay, so since you have some experience with this, I would love to hear what that generally looks like. I know it's going to be a case-to-case basis, but I would assume there's some through lines on what that stunted reality looks like and how it plays out. But then also, I would love to hear just a few quick kind of tips or things to consider as people are trying to move past that. This is probably a whole different episode, but I would love for you to just kind of touch on those things. So if people are listening and they hear this, they're like, "Ooh, I think I need that." They can Google it. They can find a therapist. Whatever we want to equip people with our podcast. That's kind of one of our main reasons for doing this.
Yeah, that's one of my things is, do you actually need therapy?
I think is the answer yes. If you're human, it's yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing that you should notice is the same thing continuously happening over and over again, year after year. Are you continuing to have difficulties with interpersonal relationships again and again? Are you easily offended? Are you continuously doing the same thing and not experiencing a different result? And unfortunately, you have to ask yourself, is your community continuing to put you in that same scenario with the same result? Like, even for me, even just teaching Sunday school was triggering. It was very difficult, but it was very much expected of me. And I was shamed if I said, no, I can't. I don't have the bandwidth. So for me, boundaries are essential. Do you have boundaries? If you don't have boundaries and you don't even know what that means, and if that sounds scary to you, you probably need to talk about it. We have to have boundaries for mental health. It is absolutely the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others to have boundaries. The healthiest people in the world, I think it's a Brene Brown, the healthiest people in the world have the best boundaries. The happiest and healthiest.
Yeah.
The happiest people have boundaries. And if even partly of your faith is still true to you, then to love others as yourself is to have boundaries for yourself and others. And I had no boundaries in my church. One of the reasons I was shamed for moving is because I was going to be moving my adopted children away. And they said, you can't do that to my children. We are together in this. We told you we were going to help support you and raise your children. You can't move. That was an essential moment where I was healing enough to know that finally that was not appropriate. And I was told, we are in covenant together. And I looked at this person and I said, oh, fuck no, we're not. No. And you don't get to claim that for me and my family. So that was where we need to be really aware of enmeshment. That is a big word that people are not aware of. And
can you give us a quick and dirty definition of what that might look like?
Enmeshment is the line very blurry of where your life begins and someone else's is in your home. Can people just call you at any moment? And do they know every detail? Like, I remember how hard it was for me to make any decision without telling somebody else. That's enmeshment. Like, somebody else needed to affirm my decisions for my life. Like, should I go to grad school? I couldn't even make that decision without asking somebody else to give me spiritual input.
Yes.
I couldn't just ask God myself anymore. Does somebody else tell you how to help raise your children? Is somebody else putting input into your marriage? Are you giving too many people too many fingers in your pie? That's enmeshment.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And as I hear you listing these things off, I'm thinking, check. Like, I definitely experience all those things. And Anna and I have talked about that. Like, the community that we miss, it felt good at the time, but it's so harmful. It's so not healthy. And I often think, oh, I wish I had a community. I wish I had like a built-in support system, but at the same time, I don't want the bullshit that comes with it. And you're just not going to find the same dynamics of a church community outside of that, which is, I feel like, a healthy thing. But to kind of reframe that in my head and realize that all the time when I'm missing that community, yeah, it's so unhealthy. So it sounds like boundaries was a big one. And then maybe give us one or two other tools to use to move forward and up and out of the stunted emotional social growth that we experience in Christianity.
You don't need a Christian therapist. I remember that being very triggering for me when I started becoming a therapist, where I'd go to church and they're like, you need to find a Christian therapist. That's such bullshit for so many reasons. So many reasons. One, your insurance don't cover it, so it's going to cost out of pocket. So it's very privileged of them to say that. And the church isn't offering free therapy. So that was really frustrating. You need to find a therapist that you connect with. Reach out to me. Like, that is one of my things. I'm really good at connecting people with a therapist that works for them, because it takes a lot of, it's not as clean and simple as it sounds. Like, you have to find somebody within your state.
Right.
And if you don't want to pay out of pocket, you have to find somebody that takes your insurance. And then the biggest piece, you need to connect with them. You need to connect with somebody outside of your church to give you a different point of view to talk about you. That is very important. You actually need somebody outside of your circle. You really do.
Yeah, otherwise you're just drinking the same Kool-Aid from a different cup.
You really are. But the more voices you actually have, the more you get to explore and choose for yourself what's best for you. So one, find a therapist that you don't have to do deep therapeutic work, but if you are struggling and you're feeling something in you that doesn't feel good, just go talk to a therapist and they'll tell you whether you should keep coming or not. I just think we really downplay mental health. We wait for a crisis to happen before we go.
Depending on whatever your specific church experience has been, like for me, I wouldn't say that mental health was demonized per se. I mean, maybe by certain people that I went to church with, but it wasn't like a main teaching, like from the pulpit. However, there were many influences in my life that would have told me that I could just pray it away. Like, God cares. God will remove that from you. And it's just such a line of bullshit. You're gaslighting yourself. You are telling your body and your mind that is trying to communicate with you, shut the fuck up, sit down. This God figure is going to fix it for you. And for me, that was just like, it's so unhealthy.
It's very unhealthy. And there's a point where people will say, go to your pastor. Like, people use their pastor as a therapist all the time.
Which I want to say is bullshit.
Correct. They're not trained.
They are not trained.
And that's one thing that was very frustrating to me. I remember inviting the church to, when I became a therapist, I invited the church I was at that time. I said, if you would like, you can actually hire me as the church's therapist. I would no longer go to your church. It would, I'm offering a service. You pay me, and then they can offer free therapy for their people.
So it's really dividing, or it's creating a clear line between your spiritual worldview and the science behind how our brains work.
Yes, true mental health and true emotional, physical healing. That was not happening in the church for me. We would talk about it, and I'd be comforted, but that's not therapy.
Right.
There's
and I think I say that, and I'm interrupting because I just was thinking while we were all talking, you guys were talking, like, Carrie Jo was like, that's bullshit. And you're like, yeah, that's unhealthy. And it's like, okay, I think a lot of people would be asking themselves right now, and I think that, I can relate to this, is that why is it unhealthy? Why is it unhealthy? Because if the church is there to spiritually protect and uphold the law of the word and to do all these good things, why would that be unhealthy, right? And so I think making that clear distinction that the church's narrative, the story of the Bible, the spirituality in general is a worldview that's very specific to the group that it's in. Yes. And it doesn't take into account modern knowledge and science about how the brain works. And most of the time, some churches may be applying some of that. But what we're talking about is mental health is dealt with in proper settings where people have been, like you said, trained, they've gone to school, they've been working really hard to understand how the brain works and help you navigate that very complicated
It's
web
complicated.
of
And it
of
should, and it could take years of work to undo it all. I'm in and out of therapy myself still. Like, I'm currently on an out, but I've done a lot of therapeutic work for myself.
I have a curiosity question. So, of all the hours of therapy you've done, what specific religious trauma event or experience has taken up the most time of those hours?
So my children that were adopted got to about the age of 18. They all ruptured. I adopted them through foster care, so they came with a lot of trauma, which the church said adopt them, but did not train us in trauma on how to parent them. They just said we're going to do it together, and that's all they need is community and love. And my oldest ran off before she graduated. She came back about a year later. The next one ran away, and then the next, and then the next. I had 4 leave within 2 or 3 years. My oldest is the only one that comes back around. And she had come back around. I had gotten her to move over here actually on the island with me, which was really good for her. And as soon as she got here, she was pregnant. And we had some really honest, hard conversations about that because it was with somebody she was not wanting to be with. And I wanted to make sure she knew. Growing up in a very conservative home, I wanted her to know that I'm okay with any option, including keeping the baby or not. I wanted her to know that she is in a rough spot. She's young, no job, a lot of mental health. Like, if you do not feel prepared for this, I support you. And I want you to know that. Her response was to run away back to baby daddy, which that's fine, but it was unfortunate. She blew up in the home here. And one of the things that is very important is I have little kids in my home still, and I have to have boundaries around them. And I can't let her behave that way in my home with little kids around. It's too much. That is a new boundary I set that the church did not believe in or agree with. When she ran off, she went back to where we came from, and that's where my old church is, and that's where my husband's family is. And I did not find out until several months later that my old best friend, and this is the one who told me I wasn't allowed to leave because we were in covenant together. This is the one who one of my adopted children is named after. And then my sister-in-law, who had just come to visit me, didn't tell me, didn't say anything. They had planned and hosted her baby shower, and I was not invited. At my sister-in-law's home, my mother-in-law was there. All my old friends from the church, my old best friend, planned and invited all my friends to this baby shower. I found out about it through Facebook, and I was not welcome to my own daughters because they thought they needed to save her. I missed my daughter's baby shower because of their religious beliefs. And my daughter is in my life now, and I love her, and I love my grandbaby. We're good now. But I missed that. I'll be hard-pressed if I ever talk to those people again.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And they don't get why we won't.
Thanks for sharing that very vulnerable, raw story. That is such a powerful example, though, of how you wrapped it up. You missed that pivotal moment because of their religious beliefs, because of the way they've been indoctrinated, the way that they navigate the world through their narrow Christian lens. They decided she needed, air quote, saving more than you needed to be invited. And that breaks my heart.
She's not a baby. She's an adult.
Right.
The thing that is hard. Yeah.
And that in itself, I think, is kind of another impetus for Anna and I doing this podcast to shine the light on ways that religious beliefs cause harm. I don't care what religion you are. I really genuinely don't. As long as you are not causing harm by what you believe to other people. And this is a prime example of, I'm sure they thought they were doing the very best thing Yet they are harming your relationship with your daughter, with your grandson. They are harming you as an individual, your family. I mean, the tentacles go out, right? It's not just you. And that's going to play out again and again in their lives because of what they believe. And that, I'm just like, I'm getting so infuriated talking about it. It just pisses me off. I have a brother-in-law who's a pastor, and he has the best heart. He is one of the best people I know. I love him dearly. But it breaks my heart when I see his posts on social media that is, it's just harmful. It's harmful shit. The rhetoric is harmful. It all points to, we need a savior. We're sinful. Come do community with us. You need to be in community. You don't need that community, like that's just gonna, oh, sorry, I gotta step back. Somebody take over.
I actually believe that my daughter would have come back to me sooner, and we would have repaired sooner if they hadn't come in. And now we're cleaning up the pieces. And thank God my marriage made it through.
Yeah.
Thank God I still have 3 beautiful children that are finally thriving. They struggled so much for years. This is the first year. It's been 3 years since all that happened.
I'm so happy to hear that. It sounds like you are on the path to healing and you've made progress. And I want to celebrate that. I'm proud of you for doing the work because it's not easy. And anyone listening, if you feel like you're stuck or you want a way out, I mean, please reach out. Reach out to Jamie. We will have her information available. Reach out to Anna. Reach out to me. We would love to be a resource for you to point you in the right direction. And if you don't feel like you want to reach out to Jamie and you've heard Anna and I talk more, you feel like you know us better, reach out to us. Like, we'll talk to Jamie. We'll get you resources. It's so important to start that journey. Just take the first step. Take the first step to healing. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be really fucking hard, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. The freedom that you find, you will experience all the things the church promises, but they can't provide. Yeah. So anyway, I'm curious, is there anything that you're specifically hanging on to that you just don't feel like you want to let go of? You've tossed it around and you feel like it's right for you. And if you don't know, that's okay too.
Well, and I think you and I were talking about this too, Carrie Jo, about my ethics are pretty much still exactly the same. They're just cleaned up and healthier. I don't need to save anybody from themselves, but I still value people tremendously. I just hold on that I really value people, and the best way to show them that I value them is to keep working on me.
Yeah,
that's not self-centered.
No, it's not. And it's taken me a while to realize that. But I'm to that point now where something that may feel selfish or would have been labeled as selfish within the church, I'm still pulling that apart. I'm still rewiring that in my brain. Every time I have that thought, I have to remind myself, no, this is not selfish. Did you have a question, Anna?
Oh, clearly you're still married.
Yes,
and
I am. You saw him.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we touch on with a lot of our interviews with people that are still married, a lot of people I know that have gone through some level, any level, lots of levels of deconstruction, have a lot of marriage problems because they met when they were both strong believers, and now their faith is evolving and they don't know what to do with some information. So can you touch on that lightly about like where you and your husband are?
Yes, and that it was actually pretty terrifying for me because I did it first. I definitely went through my deconstruction before TJ did, and he was raised in the church and I was not. So it was easier for me to deconstruct some of my thoughts, and it took marriage therapy. So it was actually his own journey of experiencing things that we had very separate experiences, but yet we had this connecting experience with when our children ran off and the church kind of abandoning us. Our separate side experiences while that was happening brought us back together. And there were some hard moments where we had to come back together. So we went to therapy. He was very resistant. And I finally was like, I'm doing all this work. I need you to show up too. And that was very difficult. You can't force anybody to do the work if they don't want to. And I finally was like, if you don't do some of this work with me, I gotta go. Like, I gotta go. There's too much for me here. And he saw how serious that was for me.
Look at you drawing boundaries.
I had to love myself and love myself and him enough to know, like, I couldn't keep doing this if he wasn't going to do it with me. And that was terrifying. he wasn't gonna, and then he did, and it was like, he's like, oh my God, that was amazing. Yeah, like it's really good, and it was so quick. He was a quick healer, quick supporter. We did some great marriage therapy. We are better now than we've ever been. We are more in love. We have more intimacy that is better than ever. You know, like everything is better. The boundaries he started placing in his job, with his family, with his faith, like he still identifies as a Christian. And I think the mutual respect has been huge on both sides. I respect him, he respects me, and together that's great. And
Yeah.
it took therapy, y'all.
Mhm.
Like for us, it doesn't mean it's going to have to be that way for others, but with my level of PTSD and the stuff we had gone through, for us, it really was important
Yeah.
for me to feel heard.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
needed that third person in the room.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Jamie, about how your journeys were kind of different, but at the same kind of simultaneous, but very different. I think that's
Yeah.
true for me and my husband as well. And same for him. He would hesitantly say he's a Christian just because he doesn't like the baggage that comes with that.
Right.
And I am totally deconverted. I no longer hold to any of the Christian teachings and probably run as far and as fast as I can away from anything that smells of that. But I'm also a person that just, when I do something, I go 10,000% and I do it. So yeah, for better or worse, that's where it has landed me in this space of, some days I don't think there's a God at all. Other days I kind of shrug my shoulders and I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe.
Part of the beauty here is I'm not going to pressure myself. I'm giving myself permission to be slow.
Yeah.
That's true in my mental health journey as well. This is a journey. I'm doing this for the rest of my life, where I'm journeying to the next level of my healing. Because the way that I show up in the world, the more healing I get, the more centered my nervous system gets, and I'm not reactive to my PTSD. I'm a huge proponent of EMDR. If anybody does not know, that was actually the therapy I did for others, and it's the one I recommend for most people who have PTSD. It's a beautiful therapy.
Can you give us like the elevator pitch of what that is?
EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Bilateral stimulation was proven to be able to affect the neural pathways in the brain. You do bilateral stimulation while processing old traumas. You don't even have to be verbalizing them, which is why it's nice. But while you bilaterally stimulate, whether it's tapping, well, since we do telehealth a lot now, eye movements, literally side to side eye movements, it accesses that part of the brain that helps release and reprocess the traumatic events so that your body no longer responds, like you're literally in the moment. And then we reprocess a new neural pathway so that when we don't lose memory of our trauma, but we can remember it and stay grounded in our bodies. We don't have the same emotional response. That's what EMDR does. It helps neutralize the experiences that cause us great distress. And it happens pretty darn quickly. You can do in like 6 months with EMDR. It could take 3 years in talk therapy.
Bang.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So would somebody, if somebody's looking online for a counselor who does that, would it specifically state in their bio or whatever, their little blurb online, would they state, I use EMDR? Or is there another phrase that they might use?
Nope, it's EMDR. It's the best way to do it. I'll give you a little, this is how I do it for all people. You go to psychologytoday.com and use the filter when it says find a therapist. Use the filter and you put in EMDR and you put in your insurance and you put in your state. And then throw it up there. And then here's the key. Who looks like somebody you would connect with? That is actually very important. They've actually shown that the most effective therapy is not how trained the therapist is. It's the therapeutic alliance between you and the therapist. That is the key to successful therapy.
That is interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah. We're going to put that link in the bio too, for anybody who wants to access that website. That's a really great resource. Thanks for sharing that. Anna, do you have any like questions for closing? We're coming to the end of our time here.
No questions. I really actually benefited from this conversation. I took notes, and we are looking for a family counselor right now. So the information about psychology today has really been helpful. I've been looking up, I've been trying all kinds of things online, and it really having a hard time actually figuring out how to pick, because I've been to multiple counselors or therapists throughout my life, but it's so challenging to find the right one, and that all that
Very.
information actually is really helpful. So thank you for sharing. We can always talk for hours with all of the people that we interview. So
Yeah.
I think today's been a really good, helpful and educational, and
Good.
just I really appreciate you sharing your story with us today, Jamie. And I think that a lot of people are going to be able to relate to parts of it, and your helpful advice is probably going to hit some people and hopefully get some people out to get some therapy as well. Nice to meet you,
Thank
Jamie.
you. Yeah, nice to meet you too, Anna.
Yeah.
Okay, take care, you guys.
All right. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot. See ya.
Carrie Jo, what a great interview.
I know.
Thank you for having her on. That's awesome.
Oh man, it was so cool to get to know her more. I mean, we had a brief phone call conversation just in prep for the interview, but I had literally never spoken to her. I had only
Wow.
had the online engagement, which it's a first for me that I've, because like, some people, maybe 90% of your engagement has been online, but you actually met them physically somehow,
Right.
and then you become Facebook friends, follow on Instagram, whatever. But
Right.
yeah, it was really cool. I love her heart. I loved the through line that I could see of how much she deeply cares about people. She just wants the best for people.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, like I see how her values remained the same, maybe with some like small tweaks here and there. But I love that. I love that she was able to hang on to a part of her in her Christian experience that was there from the beginning, that she didn't
Right.
totally let go of herself, because that's, I mean, and everyone else who has listened knows that was not my story. So like, it's encouraging to see that somebody who is also currently deconstructing was able to keep a part of her original self.
Sure. Yeah. I really tried hard to do something like that. I even think I mentioned before in my story, like, I didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because I was the baby.
Right.
When I first started deconstructing, I would hear people say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And a lot of times I think they meant
Baby Jesus. Yeah, exactly.
Right, Jesus. But really, the baby, for me at least, the baby was me. Like, I don't want to completely negate every part of my experience just because I'm coming to this conclusion or this new awareness,
Yeah. That's interesting. So
yeah.
I definitely, I would say, like, it was a slow burn. It took some time, to sort through all of that. But at the end of the explosion, if you will, of my deconstruction, I would say that pretty much let go of everything apart from some values, like Jamie said. But yeah, like, it's so interesting that all of our experiences are very different. Yet
our personalities we bring to it, and our unique experiences, all of that plays a part in what this ends up looking like. And I think that's why it's so important that the one thing that we got out of Christianity, the idea of grace, or at least I know that idea of grace is outside of Christianity in general as well, but kind of like what Jamie was sharing, like her church was beautiful. They had the community, they had all these good things, but it came with what she said, this unhealthy enmeshment,
right? All these conditions.
And so there are a few key things about what she shared that I actually took notes during our conversation. I wanted to reiterate them in this wrap up. The unhealthy enmeshment, it's a big one because that's something I truly can relate to in so many ways. There's a lot of unhealthy things that you and I talk about in regards to the church, but enmeshment was probably the most unhealthy thing that I experienced within the church. That is huge for a lot of people. The book Irresistible Revolution by Shane Claiborne. Shane was revolutionary in the church. Like, his impact, I think, shifted the trajectory of the church in so many ways. In the same way, like Rob Bell and Rachel Held Evans, if you are still a Christian and you're still trying to toy with what it looks like for you to explore outside of the church, I think Shane really does break some of those barriers of ideas of what the church looks like.
Nice. That's a good resource. We'll
Um,
have a link to that book also in the show notes.
yeah. The other thing is the happiest people have boundaries. This
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah.
You can't have boundaries if you're enmeshed in this culture. And therefore, Jamie was finding out she was not happy. You know, she was finding out that the things that she truly desired, like answers to simple questions, were not being provided. And she didn't want people dictating for her all the time what she could and couldn't do. And so learning boundaries was a huge part of my healing journey within the church and outside of the church too, is something I could really relate to. And then you don't need a Christian therapist.
Oh my God. I would even say, please don't get a Christian therapist.
Right. Well, and I've been to Christian therapists and some of them have been really good. So there are some.
That's good to know
out
that
there.
they exist.
We can't rescue anyone. Was another thing that she said that really stood out to me. Man, that sucks, doesn't
It
it?
sure does. It sure does.
After spending a lifetime, it seems, being told that we could, it's a real fucking bummer that we can't save anybody.
But the good news is, I guess, let me spin this a little bit. Not gaslighting
Please do.
you.
Please do.
I do hate that we can't save people. We can't rescue them. But now that I've deconstructed this concept of hell and eternal conscious torment, at least we're not trying to save people from that.
Right.
At least you and I, no longer.
Yes,
that is
exactly.
not part of the stress and burden that I carry day in and day out. So, yeah.
It's true. It's actually a positive thing that we can't save people. It's too much responsibility. It's too much pressure. The last thing she said that really stood out to me was give myself permission to be slow.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to fix things really fast.
I know. I just want to get through it.
Yeah. I hate sitting in the muck and mire of difficult situations. Man, letting go and just letting things happen slow. There's a really cool parable that my friend reminded me of yesterday. It's a Buddhist parable about a monk. So basically, this monk knew a family in the village, and their daughter got pregnant from someone else. And she was young. And she lied to her parents and said the monk got her pregnant. And so her parents go to the monk and they accuse him of, they're irate. And he never says a word in defense of himself. And he just says, "Is that so?" And so when the baby is born, the parents bring the baby to the monk and say, "Since this is your fault, you have to raise it." And he just says, "Is that so?" And then he raises the child. And a few years later, the truth comes out and the family comes back and they apologize and they take the child back and they continue to, they raise it from there. And the monk, it's like he's just this stoic representation of the ultimate grace. Is that so? And he just takes on this responsibility. And I think it's, for me, the thing that stands out about the story is that the truth will always come to light. And, or at least that's the hope, you know? With time, a lot of times the truth comes to light.
Yeah, that's a cool parable. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, but he took it ultimate slow.
Yeah, right. I mean, parables are usually hyperbolic, in what they're trying to communicate. So
exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that course of action if somebody finds himself in a similar situation. I mean, a paternity test would go a long way. But
I only share the story not as an example of this is what everybody needs to be doing.
I know. It is a good,
but
it's
more
an extreme.
So it's an extreme.
Yeah.
And that it's just an example of okay, take it down a notch. We don't need to be defending ourselves all the time. It is a trauma response. And you can walk away. You can say, no, I'm not going to involve you. You can draw a boundary for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think for the monk to fight it, it would have caused him more stress than it would peace. I think is the point. And so he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for himself and for the family in order to create the space for it to remain calm, for everybody to come to terms with the situation in the ways that they needed to in a natural way rather than fighting about it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I get out of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I'm glad your friend shared that with you yesterday.
Yeah.
Great timing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you say? I think that's it, right?
I think that's a good one. I think that's a really good one.
That's a really good one. Yeah. Thanks again, people, for tuning in. We highly enjoy these times together, Anna and I. And honestly, I'm always imagining somebody listening when we're talking. So that is helpful. Your presence, your imaginary presence at the time of recording is helpful to me. And then also knowing that it's actually falling on your ears at some point is also, that's encouraging. And we do not take it lightly. So thank you. Thank you for showing up for us, for yourself, for those around you. And I think until next time,
Peace out,
motherfuckers. Hey, if you made it this far, damn, you're a rock star. Thank you so much for listening to us, and let us know who you are. We want to hear from your sweet little face.
Check back in for the next episode to experience more hippie nonsense, talk more heresy, and share more laughs.